LinkedIn Live with Christine Dyckman. I wanted to welcome you all. I'm hoping that you're able to catch the live version, but if you are not, please join us and watch the recording because this is something you do not want to miss. Tonight we have Paul Kreiter with us. He is the CEO of Kreiter Creatives. And he's going to share with us a little bit about storytelling for employee retention and recruitment. This is a very important subject that interests people on both sides of the aisle when it comes to finding a job, keeping a job, recruiting for a job. How do we keep people in a job? It goes across all borders. So definitely pay attention, take some notes, and listen again if you need to. So take it away, Paul.
Well, it's so easy. Betty hash brown. Take my hand, mama, we're going to town. Oh, what a wonderful thing to do. Eggs over easy, hash browns and you. We'll have coffee, sausage, and hot butter toast. Yes, this breakfast is really the most. Oh, what a wonderful thing to do. Eggs over easy, hash browns and you. We'll go to Angelos, cause the place really hot. We'll go to Angelos, where the service is tops. We'll go to Angelos, we'll be licking our chops. Mama, we'll pull out the stops. Right now when we leave that place, we'll be laughing out loud. Smiling so hard, we'll draw a crowd. They'll say, what's up, man? And we'll just have to boast about the eggs over easy, hash browns and toast.
Somebody else is dancing besides me. I wish I had a partner.
Well, now truth ain't always clear to see. Life and love, well, ooh-wee, but what makes me happy, that's not hard to get to. It's just eggs over easy, hash browns and you. We'll go to Angelos, cause the place really hot. We'll go to Angelos, where the service is tops. We'll go to Angelos.
I want to go to this Angelos place. I don't know. It sounds really good. It's making me hungry too.
We'll be laughing out loud, smiling so hard we'll draw a crowd. They'll say, what's up, man? We'll just have to boast about the eggs over easy, hash browns and toast.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. Thank you everybody for being here tonight. Christine, it's an honor. You said it. You need a dancing partner. Who's hungry? You know, it's dinner time around dinner time here. I know I'm excited. So I wanted to jump right in and explain. So you just heard a song by a really talented artist who lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan. His name is Dick Siegel. Dick Siegel wrote that song called Angelos, eggs over easy, hash browns and toast. You know,
Chris knew, yay!
Right, Chris.
Thanks,
So
Chris.
I'll tell you. So he wrote the song in honor of this breakfast joint called Angelos. And it's right in the heart of Central Campus where bustling, you get there at 6 a.m. or else you're going to wait in line for an hour to get your eggs over easy, hash browns and toast. But they make the most delicious meals. And you can even put them to the test in terms of what it is you want from your meal. So they give you a menu that's as thick as an encyclopedia. Remember those encyclopedias? And you get overwhelmed because everything is so delicious. So I remember I was a student at the University of Michigan years ago. And some friends and I said, okay, Sunday morning, we're going to beat the crowd and we're going to go. We're going to get in line. Maybe we'll get there at 6:30, whatever. It's tough to get up on a Sunday, but let's fuel our weekend so that we can study, get it all done. Let's go to Angelos. So we got there, barely a line. We get in, and the waitress comes up to us and says, okay, what can I get you? Welcome to Angelos. And my friends are going through the thick menu. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go for one of my all-time favorite sandwiches, but it's customized. So you're going to have to put together what I want based on the ingredients that I'm asking for. And she's like, yeah, whatever, no problem. I was like, okay. And I tried to stump her. I was like, okay, well, I doubt you have this stuff, but go for it. She goes, what do you want? I said, all right. So I want a lightly toasted egg bagel. On one side, I want a light smear of chive cream cheese.
Oh, wait, you're one of those customers, Paul?
Yeah, well, in this example, yes, I am. And I said, I want a light smear of chive cream cheese. I want one slice of Munster cheese. And she's writing down, chewing her gum. Yeah, no, sure, no problem. I'm like, okay. I'm looking at my friend. I'm like, this is not going to happen. I'm like, okay, there's more. She goes, sure. I'm like, 3 slices of red onion. She goes, okay. I'm like, 1 slice tomato. She goes, fine. I said, 3 slices of cucumber. No problem. Oh, and throw some scrambled egg on there. Fine. What do you want to drink? Tall glass of orange juice with no pulp. Great. 15 minutes later, the most perfect, delicious, cheesy, gooey, creamy, perfect thing showed up on my plate. And I was like, tear in my eye. I'm like, oh my, wow. I'm like, this is why Dick Siegel writes about you. And I bit into that sandwich, and you have one of those moments where you kind of black out and you're like, travel through time and space. And you're like, this is the most unbelievable, and time stands still because you're enjoying the food production that these geniuses behind this Greasy Spoon Diner in Ann Arbor put together for you. And you walk out literally like snapping your fingers like Dick Siegel asked you to, right? And high-fiving everybody that's waiting in line for 45 minutes. You're not, right? You're like, hey, we just had breakfast. Oh, it was amazing. The thing is, that happened 22 years ago. 22 years ago. And it's still something that sticks with me. And the reason is because at Kreiter Creatives, and this thing was up here. Can everyone see that? Kreiter Creatives. At Kreiter Creatives, what I do is based on that experience, which is helping people find their voice in their business contexts, whether they're a featured speaker, whether they're giving a demonstration, whether they're on a hiring call. Find your voice so that you can craft your message and reach your audience. Do everything you can to please the audience. It is never about you. These chefs, these cooks, these bakers, they don't show up and bow at the end of serving a dish. They move on to the next customer. And that kind of philosophy is what drives the work that I do at Kreiter Creatives. And it's such a pleasure to be here to make everyone's mouth water so we can dive into this discussion, Christine. And I hope everyone was snapping their fingers a little bit before we got started.
I love the fact David has said, did you hear the angels sing as you bit into that sandwich? You know, the story that you relayed to us, we heard angels singing and we weren't even there. We weren't biting into that sandwich, but yet it was such a vivid story that it felt like we were there with you and walking out of the diner and high-fiving people. That was the feeling that we all got.
Yeah.
I'm so hungry, but
yeah. Sorry, depending on where you are in the world, either you have eaten or you're about to eat. Yes, me too. Yeah. So I hear you. But it's Dick Siegel's song is something that you turn on the classic rock station, in Detroit, and I'm in Chicago, by the way. I'm not there anymore. But when I was there, it's Sunday morning. You're going to get breakfast, right? And it's this flagship theme song that just makes you so excited for the product they give you, for the experience they create for you. That's the key to all of the work that I do in my company in terms of consulting, coaching, and helping people create the experience that others don't create. And that's the differentiator, is what are we doing to create the experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily cooking bagel sandwiches for everybody that needs an experience.
Well, let me push back and say maybe it's not the triple decking. Actually, I have a little picture of this. I'm gonna show you guys. Maybe it's not one of these. Okay. Maybe it's not the triple decking, hulking, meaty, drippy, cheesy, perfectly toasted sesame bun, arugula, pepper, and I don't know what kind of patty that is in there. I originally had some sort of beef cheeseburger thing, but then there were some vegans that I was communicating with. They're like, "Can you take out the meat and put in something else?" I'm like, "Sure, no problem." This is some sort of fig soy patty. I'm sure it's delicious, right? And but the idea is you're not always your communication opportunity. Your audience isn't always looking for this triple decking experience, but that's why they make sliders. Okay, that's why they make the little ones. You don't want a cake, you want a cupcake, right? Or a mini cupcake. So there's a philosophy, though, behind building that kind of dish. And in that case, I'll show you again, that kind of sandwich. There's a philosophy here when you are communicating with your audience. It's what kind of layers, what kind of ingredients, how is everything connected? Because when that final bite gets popped in the mouth, people are walking away knowing your company, what you stand for, why you do what you do, because you have crafted, whether it's the triple decker, the dagwood that that takes up 2 plates, or it's the tiny little slider. And the philosophy, I'll show you here, that can be seen, right, Christine?
Yes, it can. It's perfect.
Okay. So the philosophy that I call, and when you're putting together your communication plan, when you're reaching out to the audience that needs your message, it's build your sandwich using artisan storytelling, because the chefs, bakers, and cooks behind the counter at a greasy spoon like Angelos are artisans. They're crafting these food experiences for you. Similarly, when you're crafting your communication opportunity, that call, that interview, that panel discussion, right? Whatever you're doing to reach your audience has to be done the same way. There are no accidents. There are no, oops, I'm sorry, that slide shouldn't have been there. Oh, you know what? We can take that out. No. Nothing goes into that sandwich, to that dish, unless it belongs there. And that.
Let me ask you, Paul, I'm interrupting, but if we have a room of, 20 people, 1,000 people, 5 people, how do we know, do we need to make a separate sandwich for all 20 people? Or do we kind of put everything in the kitchen sink, hoping that they'll pick off pieces that they want and the ones they don't want, they'll put to the side? How does that work?
Sure. It's a great question. So the idea is when people get in a room to hear you talk, okay, that they're being served the same dish.
Yes.
Okay. Wouldn't that be something for, everyone gets their own unique 5-course dinner, right?
Sounds like the military. I don't know.
Right. Well, own unique, right? Like that sort of thing. Like, oh, she wants lobster, he wants rubber chicken. Okay.
Right.
So the idea is you have the audience, okay, so that the experience you craft is for that audience, for everyone there. Everyone deserves a bit. Okay. Sure. Some people don't like arugula. No problem. We got peppers. I'm not a big pepper fan. How about melted Swiss cheese? Yeah. Good. You'll be fine here. Right.
Okay.
So that's the idea. And the reason why I use a sandwich as opposed to any other dish, and we talked about this earlier. You responded to my post about what kind of meals do you like, okay? And we'll use this as an example. And thank you for offering that. So you said, I love pasta, pretty much any kind of pasta. But then I pressed you a little bit. I said, okay, what kind of noodles, what kind of sauce,
Right?
what else? And you basically said anything except seafood and mushrooms. Okay, I think that's what you said. So I'm thinking, there's no problem. For any seafood and mushroom pasta lovers out there, you can talk. You can you post in the comments how disappointed you are. But I'll tell you. So my response was curious. Okay, I did a curious. That was a curious. So here's why. Okay, when you ask someone what they do or what kind of services that they offer, oftentimes they don't say we offer everything. We just do everything. Well, does that make your audience go great, or does that make them go?
Sorry, Paul, you just cut out. Can you repeat that?
Oh, sure.
You cut out. Can you
Everyone
repeat
hear
that?
me right now? Everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So where did I leave off? When
you say you can do everything.
Oh, right. So when you share with somebody, what kind of services does your company offer? Well, everything. We all offer everything. People don't jump up and cheer and say, great, everything I could ever want is in this one place. There's a lot of questions that come with that. Like, well, everything? Gosh, how do you find the resources for this kind of work? Or how do you compartmentalize when it comes to this kind of work? And we often find out that a jack of all trades is a master of nothing, right? So let's bring it back to your pasta dish. Every kind. You don't have a favorite between like spaghetti, angel hair, rigatoni, giant shells, stuffed with cheese, right? So how many options are there, right, that you can choose from? And every one of those noodles and the sauce, you never gave me a sauce type. Is it red? Is it white? Is it olive oil and Parmesan cheese, right? See how many ingredients there are? How many choices that you can make? So when we think about a sandwich and what kind of layer, just the top bread we're thinking about, which is your introduction, if you think about it, right? Let me pull up my next little slide that everyone can see here. Whoop, there we go. Next slide. Okay. That can be seen, right, Christine?
Yes. Perfect.
I had to change it from orange to pink so that you guys could see the text. So a sandwich, right, as opposed to a pasta dish or a taco plate or any kind of, a gyro plate or whatever. Sandwich gives us logical structure on how we put together our communication plan, how we're going to reach our audience. And it always starts with bun, then it goes to meat or fig, soy patty, concoction, right? Or and then bottom bun, right? Bun, ingredients, bun, or intro, content, conclusion. Well, I don't really tell stories for my work. It's more of information sharing. There is always a way to craft this kind of model. And when you can stick to a structure like this and understand, well, how much time do I spend up here in my introduction? And how do I transition from the introduction moments to the really important things we have to talk about in this hour, in this 30 minutes, in this 90 minutes? And after I've done that, what's the best way to get out of here and conclude and make people want, snapping their fingers as they walk out of your meeting, thinking about your, the Angelos experience they had with you and your company. So the structure here is something that anyone can use when planning out their communication strategy. So
we talk a lot about, exactly what you are demonstrating when we're giving performance reviews or we're giving, recommendations on what not to do. And you're starting with the positive, and then you're kind of like, okay, reality, negative, somewhere in between. And then you end on a positive note. And that's kind of how it's been done for eons and eons. that model is changing a little bit, but it sounds as very similar to what you're saying in your slide there.
Sure. So here's where I push back. It's something that has been taught before, but it's usually an afterthought. It's not something that we focus on and then push people to rehearse, practice, and get trained in this kind of communication role that you play. There's the difference. Yeah, we tell people to go online and figure out, like, how are you going to start this thing, how are you going to end this thing, and how are you going to connect the middle points. People take a nice crack at it, but often how we communicate with our clients, with our prospective, the people we're recruiting, the people we're retaining, okay, it's often an afterthought. Sure, we're all told that we should do these things, but my job is to make sure that the afterthoughts are forethoughts, that there's nothing more important than how you connect with the people you're speaking to. And the training that I do for SaaS companies, for real estate companies, for healthcare companies, pharmaceutical companies, engineering companies, packaging technology companies, they all have these great products. They all have these great branded marketing slides. They're all wonderful. And then you ask the people to communicate, the sales reps, the account executives, even the technical folks there. Okay, so let's see how you communicate with the person on the other end, whether it's a box like this or it's in person. And those folks are like, yeah, I was told a few things, but no one ever has trained me in this sort of thing. Oh yeah, just start with something that they would, something interesting, end with something interesting, and then make sure you connect everything in the middle.
I think when people hear that word storytelling and they are told to use stories in their examples, whether it's for a business or for job search or whatever it happens to be, either side, stories, we think Disney World. We think, fairy tales. We think, Peter Pan and the Cinderella kind of
bedtime stories with your kids at night, right?
Yeah. So how does that come into play when you, quote unquote, are doing storytelling?
Sure. So I'll tell you that it's a stigma of those who celebrate, in the the sort of the right brain versus the left brain, worlds, the creative versus the technical, right? They don't cross each other out. They work in tandem. Okay. There is stories, stories. People in corporate America and a lot of the folks that run their places will give you that response to storytelling, creativity, and anyone who wants to, quote unquote, think outside the box. Just stay with the program, stick with what we got, and don't go overboard if you don't have to, right?
Right.
So what I have done is turn to the experts in these fields that have taken up technical roles or technical jobs. Salesforce is an example. Okay, so Eric Burridge, who founded one of the co-founders of Salesforce, he did a TED Talk a few years ago about how tech needs the humanities. And he makes this art, and there is no more techie company than Salesforce in terms of data, numbers, policies, strategies, in terms of getting sales through, people through, concepts through. They've done a very good job there. Okay. Let me get rid of this for a second here. Okay. They've done a very good job there. And he has pushed back as someone who has founded this tech giant, this conglomerate of how we use the cloud to help us move businesses along. He says, listen, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, it's one thing to be able to build something, to develop something, which is really important. But if we don't have people that can communicate why those things are important and where they'll be used, then it's meaningless.
So where should people learn those things? Where should they learn the whys and the hows in order to be able to relay that to a listener, whether they're internal inside the company, maybe it's a new recruit, or it's external and you're trying to bring them in or get them interested in your services and what you do?
Sure. So in theory, the mission statement or the values of a company should give you those things to chew on. You should have that at your ready at your organization. So if you're looking through your company's website or your social media, your company's social media feeds, it should be there because your brand's story should motivate you, should be your catalyst to getting people on board to your brand, to your company.
So is that like point A before you even think about storytelling? Is to make sure that you have that mission that is relaying all the information so you can start to develop stories?
So think about it. A client who is considering joining your company or staying with your company,
yes,
is going to do their homework and diving deep into who you are, you guys are, and what you do, even before you get on the call. That's the age we live in. People are doing their homework. They should be, at least, right? So it should be there. The marketing teams, the executive leadership, okay, and your sales team. Everyone needs to work in tandem to understand from the administrative roles to the technical roles to the sales roles to the leadership roles. Everyone needs to be rowing the boat in the same direction, because we can't have 15 different brand stories for how a person communicates why someone should join or stay with said company. So it starts.
Do you believe in visual storytelling or just the words of being able to story and then being able to formulate that picture in your brain like a book?
I believe in the visuals. Okay. I really do. And I realize that there's not always an opportunity to use visuals. However, that's one of the powers of storytelling, is that even if you don't have a slide to throw up, okay? Throw up, isn't that the wrong way of saying it? A slide to use, a slide to use, that you can paint a picture of what you'd like said client or potential client to see, to vision in their head. That's what storytelling is for creating the experience in the mind of your listener. That's what it's for. And I like to use visuals as often as possible, particularly in this space when, how many times does someone throw up a PowerPoint? Throw up, there it is again. Someone use a PowerPoint, actually in that case, throw up a PowerPoint. And then there are a little tiny box in the corner, flapping away. Don't look at me. I just want you to see the screen and don't look at me, right? This role as presenter in whatever role you play at your company, okay, you're so much more than an information dumper or sharer. You're a performer. This is a stage. So everything comes down to storytelling. And some people have I have worked with very technical companies, very data heavy companies that are like, there isn't a story here, it's just numbers. Then we're not thinking this deep enough. You're a deep person. You analyze data for a living and you can't find a way of telling the story.
Not everyone is, as one of the comments says, I agree. Not all of us can visualize. Not everyone can, come to that picture in their mind with all of those words, whether it's relaying that information to somebody or listening to those words and then seeing a story in your mind as well.
So I would argue politely that everyone can. Everyone can. And that's part of the work that I do with my clients, is getting them into a performer's mindset. It's a different way of thinking. So yes, we are all trained sometimes early on to think and talk about data and information and details in a certain way and compartmentalize storytelling, which doesn't belong in business, doesn't belong in HR, doesn't belong in sales, but it does. It does. And what I do is I sort of peel back the curtain and I say, look what we can do here in terms of developing the story behind this. I mean, I've had this thing up here, and I wanted to help those who might find the obstacle of storytelling.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at, and you guys have seen this now, I've had it up for a little bit here. I haven't talked about down here. So when you're putting together a presentation, you can sub for communication strategy, you can sub for interview, okay? But the structure is that you spend a short amount of time introducing, which is basically telling the story, the why we're there today. It's a short amount of time. It's short and significant, though. So what we do here when people are introducing said conversation with client or potential client is, how is the drive? How is the weather? My name is so-and-so. I've been doing this for so-and-so many years. Let's just get started and talk about what we need to talk about. They treat the introduction as a filler moment. Can we just get through this? I've got so much to talk about in my 70% of my content here. Absolutely. You should be spending that much time there. But we don't dismiss the introduction as just is everyone's sound working, right? Is everyone's screens on? This is a chance to find the story element. And there are many ways to do that. So you can, I would hope before you get on a call with person you want to keep or recruit to your company, that you would have done your homework about them. Maybe an article they just wrote, or a social media post for their company that they're in charge of, or something about the industry that is fascinating, a particular statistic or figure, number that just is really interesting. That's a story. Those are all stories. So you don't have to once upon a time, Snow White. It's not that. It's not that. It isn't that.
It's a visual kind of backing up all of the text and the words that you are speaking, so that you can see a visual that's just kind of dittoing what you've said.
So yes, and I'll elaborate. Okay. So in terms of a visual should support your message. Okay. So a visual shouldn't be a PowerPoint with 15 bullet points that you read. No, that's not what a visual is. But, for example, okay, if I throw up, if I
you can't say that anymore.
I can't throw up with food. Yes, I know I can't. Sorry, folks. So if I put up this visual here, the goal is that people will focus on all the colors and imagine the flavors of this delicious looking concoction of a sandwich. And my goal in this virtual capacity is to use my words to support the image, and the image is supporting my words. And a lot of time has not passed, about 15 seconds, 20 seconds, where we're slowing down and I'm allowing the image to do its part. I'm not trying to talk around the image. I'm not making specific indication of the image. I'm letting it add to the overall point that I'm making, right? And when I'm done with talking about that image in an intimate setting, I join it. So now it's time for me to acknowledge we've made the point, and then move on, get rid of the visual, and then you can use your own visual, your own face, your mannerisms, your gestures, your tone of voice, your eye contact. These are all visuals too. Right? So it's not just
I don't think that is something that many people have ever thought about or thought of, unless you do have that theater experience from the stage, because when you're so used to, especially now after our pandemic, people are used to the screen. They're used to PowerPoints. They're used to hiding behind the keyword in many cases, not all, but in many cases. And that is a very important point, that you can use the facial features and your mannerisms to relay what you're passionate about.
Absolutely. And again, I'll push back. You don't need a theater background. You don't need, and which I do. I have a performing arts background. Right. Actually, I come to this field sideways. I didn't train for this. It became what I did because I like doing it. I have a passion for it. My why, the stories that I tell about the sandwich and Angelos, this is to get you guys excited about the possibilities that you have for yourself. Right? I tell that story. Everyone can tell a story about their favorite restaurant and their favorite meal. Everyone can. Everyone. You are not limited because of your lack of drama experience. You're not.
Right.
But it's using those elements that you might think as social or just for my family. You can use those elements when you're crafting that introduction story moment to get your audience on board. Everyone can do it. Everyone.
So how many of those stories should you have in your back pocket, so to speak? I mean, I'm sure you wouldn't say the Angelos sandwich story over and over and over again. You probably have quite a few that you can pull out and refer to when you're starting some kind of training.
Absolutely. So it comes down to your audience. If your audience hasn't heard your message before, then absolutely go to your bread and butter, the most creative, fun. I can't play music everywhere I go. I wish I could. Like just kind of a walking band behind me playing, finger snapping Sinatra kind of music behind me. Yes. And be like, hey, everybody. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't we all like that? And talk about recruiting. Oh my gosh. People be like, I love this company.
Yes, this is awesome. Do it again.
Right, exactly. Oh my gosh. Can we play music all the time? So you don't always have the tools at your disposal to do everything that you want. So the key is to focus on, why do you use that story? Okay, what's the point? Okay. Right. Am I just doing that to make everyone snap their fingers and get them hungry? Sure. But there's a greater point. The greater point is, okay, if we talk about, again, this structure here, I have to lay the top layer. Right? My introduction is finding that piece of bread that I think is going to get everyone excited, whet the palate, getting people to buy in, maybe sink their teeth into what I'm offering, what I'm saying. So I start with an introduction that I think does that. I lay the piece of bread, the toast, and it's not just Wonder Bread. It's a delicious olive loaf, right? It's marble and it's marble rye. And it's toasted lightly, as opposed to just a piece of white Wonder Bread. So I know that I have several versions of the opening bread, the introduction layer. Okay. So most of the people who hear you, okay, unless you're a keynote speaker who travels the world, okay, which
some people on this call are. So that's why I ask.
Right. So every audience deserves a unique approach. Doesn't mean you have to change your foundation all the time, but the folks in Dallas are going to have different values and customs and flavors than the ones in Chicago, than the ones in LA, than the ones in London. So as part of someone who crafts a message, you have to think, okay, will my Angelos intro work for these people? Does that make sense?
Yes, okay? Absolutely.
I'm sorry, maybe it doesn't. So instead of an Angelos version, maybe there's a similar top layer, top layer introduction that you can use. And every town, audience, event planner, company, and their themes, they'll give you that, whether voluntarily or it'll be in their copy, in their collateral. It's all there for you to craft. And remember, you don't spend all your time there. You spend a small amount of your time there. And then you transition into why you came, is to deliver this really important information. And then, of course, you have to transition out, right? You have to have a story.
I like Michelle's suggestion where she used one of her employees to tell the story to verify how awesome her company is, to help her recruit new people and new recruits. And I'm thinking that it's not all on our shoulders as
Right.
a company representative or a business owner, or it could be other people that are also vouching for the success of a mission statement and what a company is all about.
It's a great point, Michelle. And client case studies are a perfect way to tell the kind of story that is very impactful and meaningful for your kind of work. And that can happen in the beginning, or that can happen at the end, because you do have to sandwich your content between a really important story, creative entry point, and something that leaves people wanting more. I would think the client success case studies, those stories, would be a great outro. How we get out of here, right? How do we get them excited? Well, you want to see yourself in the shoes, in our shoes. Listen to this testimonial. Let me tell you about Roger's team.
Okay.
So that kind of story, and again, not fantasy Disney stories. These are stories that have a purpose, right? So it's always a smart plan to have a plan A, plan B, plan C, and mix it up. Not everyone's going to hear your story, but at the same time, if it's a fun story, people want to hear it again. That's why they put on their favorite songs, comedy albums. They go see their favorite authors tell the same stories over and over again, because if it's a good story, it sticks, right?
It sticks anyway. Yes. So what are your recommendations then? I mean, give me the I don't know, top 5 things that go into creating a really good business story using maybe some of those numbers that we're not really sure what to do with them. What should they do? The top 5 things.
So when it comes to creating the kind of story that's going to land with the audience you're in front of, it starts with before you open your mouth. You have to go on to their sites, social media, their blogs, the articles, the research that they've done. And you have to familiarize yourself with it. You don't have to become an expert in what they do, but you do have to familiarize yourself to give you the kind of content foundation. Okay. That's before you open your mouth at all. All right. That's the first thing. Do your homework on who these people are and what drives them. Okay. You might even want to, at that point, sort of address the things that they're trying to solve, their pain points, the problems. Okay? So that's it. Do your research. Okay. That's number 1. Number 2, and it's not like number 1 important. It's just one of the things I'll tell you. A second thing that I'll tell you is that depending on if it's in person or if it's virtual, you have to do a particular kind of setup. Okay. So if it's in person and you have to be in a particular space, or like I said, it's an office space or a boardroom, or you have to make sure you know where you're going. Don't be late. In fact, be early. Never show up late to your own speaking opportunity.
This sounds like an interview. Wow.
It really is. Got it. Yeah. So do your homework, and also be prepared, because things will happen, will come up that you didn't plan for. So if you have enough cushion while you're there in person, then it will work. It'll all work itself out. Now, if it's virtual, that we did this ourselves, Christine. It's get on 15 minutes early, making sure this bell and this whistle that dings and that toots. Okay. Does it work? Does it not work? And we troubleshooted for about 5 minutes of some things that I wanted to show your audience here. And so it's that pre-speaking prep. Okay. So that's one is do your homework on who these people are. Don't walk into a room without knowing who you're in front of. And 2 is making sure, if you're live, that you're there early to account for any kind of hiccups that you didn't plan for. If it's virtual, sign on early to make sure all the tech is working.
Yes.
Because none of it matters if you don't know you don't know who these people are, and you can't be seen or heard. I mean,
that's so true.
None of it matters. 3 is with the digested information you have about the client you're in front of, develop your, and I'll throw it up, I'll put it up again. Develop your sandwich model. Okay, make sure that you have an introduction story, which could be a personal story you want to tell them about the industry. It could be a fact or figure about the industry that is mind-blowing. It could be you indicating how familiar you are with their company because of the tweet you read, the blog you read, giving them feedback, positive feedback on what you've read, to give them a sense of, I'm diving in here. Okay, before you even get to know me, I want you to understand that I'm here for you. I've done all this, right? Create your intro story, then line out your ingredient levels, right? What am I going to talk about first? What's my cheese layer? What's my patty layer? What's my veggie layer? And make sure that you have a plan to address each one of them. After you've introduced, go into level 1, level 2, level 3, and then conclude with, we talked about it, a story that's going to want them come back and work with you, stay with you. That catalyst call to action, the client case study, for example. That's a good spot for that. So that's 3.
Right.
Okay. Is creating this kind of structure for your communication plan.
Is it necessary to memorize that?
No, it is not. You can, it's really important. This is actually number 4. I'm glad you mentioned that. Number 4 is, whether you're in a virtual capacity or whether you're in live and in person, is make as much eye contact as possible with your audience. So in this context, folks out there, I can't make eye contact with any of you except for you, Chris. Well, I can't even make eye contact with you.
I know, right? Look at the little camera, right?
But the idea is that I can create the illusion of it in this capacity, so that any of the folks that are looking down, taking notes, or on their phones, or doing multitasking, and they look up, they'll see that my eyes are on them. So it creates that illusion, a positive, a good thing. It's a connection, right? And always aiming for the light on your camera. That's where you have to look in order to create that facade. Unfortunately, in person, in person, you want to make as much eye contact as possible that is comfortable and familiar and sensitive to the other person. You don't want to like glare into the eyes of the person you're talking to, but you want it to be casual and conversational enough so that the exchange of stories, details, information can be pleasant. If you have notes, it's totally okay. I have notes. We all have notes. It's okay to make your notes, write your notes. It shows that you're invested. But make sure that your eyes stay up, locking eyes with the person you're in front of. And then the 5th thing I would say is making sure that you know your content. No matter not just the content of the company you're speaking to or the person you're speaking to, but it's like, never put your name on something you're not proud of, right? Never open your mouth to start a conversation with somebody if you're not prepared to do your part. It's a give and take. So knowing your content, knowing the meat, cheese, and veggies of your own work is, I know it seems kind of like a no-brainer, but not everyone is prepared when they come into these critical conversations. And a lot of folks, particularly ones that are seasoned, like to wing it. Just get in there, whatever. I'll figure it out as I go. No, plan ahead.
I can't tell you how many times they've heard that.
Right.
I think that the best advice that I've heard is that know the answer to the possible question, even if they don't ask it. So if you know your company inside and out, you should be able to answer any question that an employee has for that retention or recruitment.
Right. It's part of do your homework. It's just a different kind of homework. It's when you're preparing your content, make sure that you can deliver it, because content is king. If we don't have meaty information to share with people, then it's just blah, blah, blah. Right? Particularly in the, when you're recruiting and trying to retain folks to be with you.
Right.
You are an extension of your company. So You have to come across as someone who knows their stuff. Those are the 5 things. I'll repeat them again. Do your homework on the client, show up ready to talk about them. Make sure your AV needs are all met for your virtual experience, but in person, make sure that you arrive early enough to account for any kind of blunders or mistakes. Changes of schedule. Use the sandwich model, top bun, meat, bottom bun, as a way of structuring your communication moment. The fourth is create a connection with your audience by making eye contact. And if in a virtual capacity, if I know it's very artificial, stare at your camera's light. And in person, make a sensitive conversational approach in terms of meeting the eyes of the person across from you. And then the fifth is making sure you know your content. Don't show up for one of these meetings, these conversations, when unprepared, because you will lose the opportunity to make the impact you're hoping for.
So if somebody wanted to know a little bit more about storytelling and crafting their business story, no matter what business they are coming from or in or going to, do you recommend any particular books or following somebody on TED Talks or anything like that will help them to be able to do that?
Sure, and some of it is
in addition to your business, of course.
Sure. No, it's me. It's just this. No. So the reason why here's the thing. We all stand on the shoulders of others. There's nothing new under the sun. So anything that I'm going to tell you about storytelling, and I have my unique approach, but we look to others to build our knowledge, and everyone should be reading and researching and watching as much as we can so that we're prepared for our moment. So here are some folks that have inspired me. Some are, I've been there, I've done that, or I've heard that before, but I think are worth repeating. The first is Simon Sinek's Start With Why, which came out years ago. So he was ahead of the curve considerably, but it stands the test of time because nothing matters more than why you do something.
Yes.
And in these demos and these presentations and these panel discussions, there's so much emphasis on what and how.
Yes,
this is what we do.
I agree with what Michelle said. I have to believe in my company and what they do and their mission to be able to go out there and recruit other people, because I can't fake it. Like, I really have to believe in that. And I think that Simon was definitely years ahead of his time. Absolutely.
I'm reading now and nearly finished with Gary Vaynerchuk's latest book, 12 and a half is what it's called. And these are his 12 and a half principles that drive him towards the work that he does for his media company, for his wine company. If Vaynerchuk is he has a very outward personality. If people don't know who he is, if you look up any of his YouTube, he might throw an F-bomb around or an S-bomb around. But he does it not for shock value. He does it because it's truly authentic to who he is and why he does what he does. No one's going to put a filter on him. No one's going to tell him who he is and what he can be. And that has made him a multi-millionaire. And it's not just shock. It's not just to hurt someone's feeling to use that language. He says it about his employees. He'll say, like, I love these people so effing much. Right? The S that these people do every day is mind blowing. Right? And he even will have people say, you know what, you'd be so much more more impactful if you didn't use the potty language. And he's like, I don't give a what you think. Right? I don't care what you think.
Sounds like a down the earth person. Yeah.
Right. Doesn't matter to me. Very straightforward, brash, and brilliant. 12 and a half is that book. There's a book by a tech entrepreneur who's also a very, very good keynote speaker. It's called Big Little Breakthroughs, which is by an author named Josh Linkner, Linkner. I've had the pleasure of consulting for one of his companies called the Three Ring Circus, which is behind the scenes as to how the keynote speaking world works. For 11 years, I was an agent for some of the greatest storytellers in the world. His philosophy is nothing big happens without something small. So instead of shooting for the ultimate goal, remember, if you can polish little tiny pearls, little tiny pearl, little tiny pearl, you're going to have a gorgeous piece of jewelry at the end of the day. You don't need giant diamond, big, huge ruby, giant diamond. The elegance.
That's very interesting. I mean, I think that's inspirational for all of us that you're moving just a tiny bit in the right direction, then all that is going to add up.
Right. If we try to go for the for the sink the 3-pointer every time, it's like,
thank you, Chris.
You'll win the game. You'll win the game if you can make your layups and your free throws. Okay, all that matters. So the big little breakthroughs, and not everyone's going to go out and read all this stuff immediately, but those three in particular have really driven me to focus on what's important about what we're doing. Why is this so important? And these authors have really helped me understand that. And there are so many when it comes to your brand, power of your words. And then, of course, the work that I do, which can be done in a group capacity, where I teach people. I have a webinar that I teach people sort of the power of storytelling, helping people to build their own sandwiches using these interesting philosophies, but also one-on-one work. And I said that at the beginning is sort of, we need people to push us. We need to know that we're focused. We need to focus on these things that maybe we haven't focused on for too long. What I do is I create an environment to help people move that needle and to give them a safe, comfortable, fun space to explore. I don't want to be on camera. I don't like telling stories. I'm not creative. We get rid of all of that. And I give people a space to experiment. Let's go for it. Let's just try. What can come of it? Only good things. So
I think that's awesome. And thank you, Chrissy. Check the chat box, please, because there's some really great information and questions in there. But the exact titles and authors to the books that Paul was mentioning just a few minutes before.
Yeah, so, thank you, Chris. I'm just seeing that now. I appreciate that. That's awesome. For the work that I do at Kreiter Creatives, I offer anybody who wants to sign up for, you can find me on LinkedIn, reach out to me, a direct message. Everyone gets 15 minutes. We sit down, talk, figure out what kind of communication challenges you're facing, what kind of presentations, what kind of interviews, what kind of panel discussion you're facing, what kind of demo you have coming up. And my job is to listen to see if I can develop a plan right then and there. And that 15 minutes, it's all I need to help you get started. And it's free. You walk away with a plan. And if you like that plan and you need help implementing it, then we start working together in a contractual basis.
I put your LinkedIn information in the chat. Is it okay if anybody reaches out to you and makes that connection?
Absolutely.
After all, that's how Paul and I met. And we started talking a little bit. And I said, hey, Paul, great subject. Can you come out and tell us all about it? And that's when he agreed to do so. So I'm glad that he was able to take some time from his schedule and share all this information about storytelling. And I wish I was an expert such as he is, but I guess I'm going to knit my pearl.
Absolutely. Well, it's been an honor. And folks, I'm sorry I can't at least the facade of looking you in the eyes in your little boxes, but please reach out. It would be a pleasure to meet all of you. Christine, thank you. I appreciate it. And anyone who needs more information about Kreiter Creatives, you can go to kreitercreatives.com.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you again for coming and presenting to us. And thank you, everyone, for listening in and participating in our chat. And we'll see you in September. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.